Welcome to a very special episode of Sustain9. I am Neha and delighted to have experts from DVAL with us today, Dr. Cornelia and Laura, for giving insights on circular economy. Today's episode is particularly exciting for me and Sustain9 as well because we are discussing a project we have had the privilege of being the India partners in this evaluation. What made this collaboration so remarkable for us was working with an exceptional team, engaging in clear strategic thinking, fostering great collaboration, and exchanging innovative ideas and insights. After months of dedicated research, the hard work has finally come to fruition. I'm thrilled that this comprehensive report is now available for everyone to read, learn from, and take action. But before we dive into the technical aspects and explore some really interesting insights, let's get to know our experts a bit better and also about DVAL. So over to you, Dr. Cornelia and Laura.
Thank you very much for this very kind invitation to participate in this podcast. And we are happy to present and talk with you today about our evaluation on circular economy and on the topic in general. So as you said, we are both from DEVAL, which is the German Institute for Development Evaluation based in Germany in Bonn. And we are departmental research institute of the German federal government, and we contribute to evidence-based policy making while we are doing like strategic evaluations. With this, we want to increase the effectiveness of the field, and hope we can contribute interesting insights here. So as Neha presented, I'm Cornelia. I'm working at DEVAL for since 6 years already. I worked also in other evaluations, for example, on climate change adaptation measures. And I'm by training an economist with a specialization in development economics. Yes, and I'm here with my colleague Laura.
Yeah, my name is Laura. As Neha already introduced me, I'm a development economist and work at DEVAL for around 6 years now as an evaluator. Was part of the team on the circular economy evaluation together with Cornelia and other colleagues. But before, I also worked in different other evaluations, for example, in the field of quality standards for evaluation. Thank you.
Thank you both for that wonderful background. I can already tell that the listeners who are passionate about sustainability and circular economy theme will find this conversation incredibly valuable. Now let's deep dive into the heart of what you have been working on. So this evaluation represents significant research and effort, and I'm sure our audience is curious to understand the scope and the ambition behind it. So let's start with the study overview. So could you briefly explain what this DVAL evaluation on circular economy is about and what was the aim of this evaluation?
Yeah, perfect. So let's start to give you a bit overview of what we have done. So the evaluation we are talking about is on the topic of circular economy and German Development Cooperation. The report was recently published and the evaluation was conducted between summer 2023 and until the end of 2024. So while in German Development Cooperation, this field can draw on many years of experience in some areas of circular economy, for example, waste management. Circular economy was included as a very new field of action as part of a development cooperation reform process. Therefore, it was decided that the evaluation we have done was conducted in a rather formative manner, meaning that the findings should help to further develop this topic within German Development Cooperation at a very early stage. So more specifically, the knowledge gained in this evaluation should help to improve the implementation of interventions in this constantly growing field by enabling the different actors in German Development Cooperation to further develop the concept of circular economy, but also to better manage the circular economy portfolio. So more specifically, the objective of this evaluation was to gain insights into the concept of circular economy, but also the cooperation of different actors in the field of circular economy and German Development Cooperation.
Right, right. So that really helps us understand the scope and the objective of the evaluation. While we have listeners from different spectrum, from sustainability experts to people just beginning their journey with these concepts, I think it would be valuable to establish a clear foundation. The term circular economy gets thrown around quite a bit these days, but I'm not sure if many people fully grasp what makes it different. So, for our listeners who might be hearing about this for the first time, how is the circular economy different from our current economic system?
Yeah, so let's start first by explaining what circular economy actually is and why we need more circular economy. Our current economic system in many countries of this world is predominantly linear. This means that in a linear economic system, resources are extracted and processed into products that are only often used once and then are improbably dumped or thrown away after a very short lifespan. A circular economy, on the other hand, organizes economic processes in a circular manner. It means that it aims to use resources and products for as long as possible or recycles them to decrease the consumption of resources. By establishing then resource security, building up and expanding sustainable areas of the economy and creating new jobs, a circular economy can therefore contribute to economic, ecological, and also social sustainability, and also therefore widely supports the attainment of the Global Sustainable Development Goals. But there are also concrete actions.
Yeah, thank you, Laura. And if you think about what exactly might be concrete actions in the field of circular economy, then you can think about the so-called R strategies. Some of the most widely known are like reduce, reuse, recycle. And reduce, for example, means like, okay, you reduce the resource use right in the beginning when designing a product, or you reduce already the waste in the end when you design the product. No? And so there are different actions possible. There are many more of these R's, like repair, refurbish, rethink, which help you think about where in the life cycle you can create it or build it more circular in that way. And you can think it for yourself, like in your daily lives, but also every entrepreneur can think about how he or she can create a product more circular while going through all these different strategies.
So you call it the R strategy. So that's a clear and helpful explanation. Thank you for breaking that down. Now, as we deep dive into the report, one term really caught my attention and frankly gave me a pause: the triple planetary crisis. The name alone suggests we are dealing with something, quite significant here, right? So could you explain what this refers to and its connection to the circular economy?
So the term of triple planetary crisis is closely connected to what I explained before on the linear economic system, because this linear economic system contributes to three negative consequences that humans face right now, which is first the climate change, pollution, and biodiversity loss. So for climate change, around half of the global greenhouse gas emissions are currently caused by the energy intensive extraction of resources. It's also estimated that the environmental damage will increase by 2050 due to an expected doubling of municipal waste volumes. Also, in addition, water scarcity for humans and also for animals is exacerbated by the extraction of groundwater of raw materials. This is leading to a biodiversity loss. Furthermore, the current linear economic system contributes to global species extinction, for example by discharging waste into the world oceans. So the idea behind having a circular, rather a linear economy, is to reduce these negative consequences by the avoidance of waste and the promotion of a sustainable consumption and also production methods that are also key objectives of the circular economy. So this greater resource efficiency should lead to a stable and sustainable economic system in the long term.
So that certainly put things in perspective. And when you are confronting challenges that span climate, biodiversity, and pollution simultaneously, it's obvious that response has to be equally comprehensive and collaborative, right? So I understand that different actors have to work together for implementing the circular economy. So who would you identify as the main actors that need to work together, and why is this cooperation essential between various actors within a country?
Yeah, thank you, Nia. Yeah, that's very important, the different actors that come into play here. There are three central players actually, which need to all yeah, support the measures on circularity, because otherwise it will not succeed. So on the one hand, there are governments and administrations, which define the framework conditions in a country for the development of circular economy approaches. And these policy measures are important to ensure that also companies introduce resource efficiency oriented innovations. So on the one hand, governments can introduce like market incentives in the sense of tax cuts or subsidies or the pricing of single-use products, but also they can build like legal framework conditions like banning single-use products or regulations to improve product repairability and reusability. They could also introduce something which is called the extended producer responsibility, which then gives the producer the responsibility for the products over the entire life cycle. So from the design to the end of life management, which is waste collection and recycling. And so as you already heard now, the private sector is the second central player in the field of circular economy. Without the participation of the private sector, it will also not succeed. So it is important that they develop innovative solutions for extending product lifespan or recycling raw materials, together also with science and research, because that needs a lot of knowledge. But we hear also from that, okay, a significant investment has to be done also by the private sector, and also especially to reach market maturity of these products. So it means for the private sector considerable change to turn more their product their production more into circularity and adapt their value chain. And this comes with some opportunities but also with risks, and that's why the government is so important to set a framework which gives also a bit of planning security, which gives also financing options, etc. So yeah, then this would be the second important player, and the third important player are in the end we as consumers. So we contribute to a circular economy by changing also our consumption behavior, and through our purchasing decisions, the way we use products, but also our disposal practices. So here it's also important that we receive like awareness raising on the topic, which we are maybe doing a bit today here, and that we receive also education on the topic to be able to adapt our behavior in a way that helps circularity in the value chain. But it is also dependent a bit how we as consumers accept this circularity in terms of the economic or political country context, but also our socioeconomic status. So the change of products or of the production into a climate-friendly production might also raise the prices, and then the consumer might have challenges, especially if they have lower incomes, and then they might also change back to cheaper products which are not so climate friendly. So it is also an important group, and there are other groups like civil society organizations which are maybe also important for especially these vulnerable low-income groups to see that they are well considered in the whole transformation to circularity. But in general, all these actors have to play well together to increase circularity in the economy.
Right. I think the collaboration aspect is very critical, and where the public-private partnership is also very crucial, right? Now, what I find particularly valuable about our approach is that we did not just study circular economy in theory. We actually examined how countries are implementing these ideas in practice, right? So audience might be really curious about how we selected our case study countries. So what was the rationale behind selecting India and Albania as the two case study countries for this evaluation? And what specific insights did these countries provide?
Yeah, that's a great question and also really interesting part of our evaluation.
Right.
So we actually identified a number of case studies which is based on the portfolio on circular economy interventions that are funded by different German ministries and implemented by different German implementing organizations. And our aim of analyzing these case studies or the interventions within these countries was to analyze the coherence between the different actors that were working in these countries. So therefore, countries were identified in which several interventions from different actors were taking place. So it was particularly important that either two different German ministries or two different implementing organizations, such as the GIZ or the KfW, were active in these countries. The two countries with the most or the largest number of circular economy interventions were India and Albania. And India was actually selected because the two German ministries, financed interventions in this country, and Albania was chosen to get an idea from the implementation perspective, which means that the two main implementing organizations, GIZ and KfW, were carrying out these interventions. Both studies were conducted inside, which means that we went to both of these countries for some days and were taking interviews with the managers of these interventions and also their partners. So what have we found out in these two countries? What were our main findings? So two countries were implementing circular economy at a different stage and also in really different ways. So while a lot of interventions in Albania focused on developing a strategy and a roadmap for circular economy at a higher political level, together with ministries in charge in Albania, the focus in India was rather on corporations with huge private sector companies where they conducted pilot projects on circular economy. The partners in India and also in Albania confirmed that their cooperation with the German development actors in the field of small and medium-sized enterprises is generally positive, but they also highlight some challenges. So in India, as a main challenge, it was found out that the German departmental structures are difficult for the partners, the Indian partners, to understand, because different German ministries are involved in this country within the field of circular economy that have different strategies and also different aims. On the other hand, a challenge that was reported by the German side was that also the complexity of Indian structures was perceived as a challenge. In Albania, actually, the main reported challenges were related to the coordination with the government. So this was mainly due to the outflow of skilled workers, which also resulted in staff shortages and a high demand for capacity development in Albania.
Right, right. I think it's very country specific as well. When you are implementing any of the circular economy projects, it depends on the conditions prevailing in your country, right? The theme might be same, but it's very different how you implement it. And like you said, the structures are also important. How different ministries are structured, how the private sector is structured in that country, right? I think I'll add about India part because we have been the India partners and working with you. So I think we also interacted with different actors from public and private institutions, social enterprises, then professionals in the sector as well. So there are a lot of work going on towards circular economy in India. However, more collaboration, capacity building, and I think support is needed, like funding, awareness, more cooperation in the supply chain as well. So basically, the circular economy can be achieved more when everybody from top to down are following the same goals, right? So that is the coherence we have been talking about. So maybe we can again meet after a year or so and rediscuss on the progress we are seeing, right? So those countries' experiences are really illuminating. But whenever we discuss major economic restructuring, there is always a question that sits with me, and I imagine with many of our listeners too, which is what impact does the application of the circular economy have on different vulnerable groups? And how can this impact be mitigated while also engaging with businesses and governments who have different priorities?
Yeah, thank you, Neha. And that's also, no, especially if we think about development cooperation, where we are working from the German side a lot with vulnerable groups, a very important question. And with these huge transitions, there is indeed a high risk of that, especially these vulnerable groups are harmed in the process. And what's interesting about the framework of circular economy is that from its origins, it doesn't really tackle or include the social dimension too much. It's focusing more on the environmental perspective and on the economical perspective. But the social dimension is not so much in the focus, and this is also a bit criticized. And there are also in recent studies more researchers developed different frameworks which try include the social dimension much more. The most highlighted group in the area of circular economy is often the informal waste workers, and they if these sectors or the sector of waste is maybe formalized while circular actions are taking place, this might mean for these informal workers to lose their job. So here it's so important to find ways or how they can maybe be formalized and then even benefit from this whole development, so that they are not excluded, but that they are included in the formalization process. They might, in general, benefit from better working conditions, but also that there are less health risks when the sector is formalized. No? And in our evaluation, we also had a specific look at vulnerable groups because, as I said, it's very important for development cooperation to also do not no harm to these groups. And also there, we find mainly a focus on these informal waste workers. But if we think beyond that, there are further groups which might be affected by this transition to a circular economy. So you can think also of workers in other sectors, in manufacturing, in the textile sector. So if the processes are changed there and they lack the skills of still working in these companies, this might also have a negative effect on them. So there's also very important to invest in the education of these workers so that they can then also in the new setup still work in these companies and are not losing their job. And the third group in that sense would be in general the low income groups, and there it's very important to always like balance what you are doing there so that the basic needs of the population are always and especially of these especially vulnerable groups like low income groups are always in the foreground, and then you try to combine both goals in that sense.
I think you described it like very clearly. The balance you describe is absolutely essential. And building on this theme of coordination, cross-ministry collaboration may be complex sometimes, as you also mentioned. Could you briefly explain like how different ministries are incorporating CE into their strategic plans, and why their coordinated efforts are so crucial for its successful implementation?
So actually in Germany, on the strategic and the policy level, as I described already earlier, there are different German ministries that are financing or funding interventions related to circular economy and development cooperation. So there's first the Ministry for Economic Cooperation and Development, who are responsible for German development cooperation with partner countries. But there's also another ministry, the Federal Ministry for Environment, Nature Conservation, Nuclear Safety, and Consumer Protection, which is responsible for promoting circular economy in Germany. They were, for example, responsible for developing a national, so German strategy for applying circular economy. But besides, they are also funding interventions in partner countries. So both ministries and also other actors are involved in partner countries. They work with different groups of stakeholders, as explained earlier, are the government, so different ministries, but also civil society organizations or the private sector. So in order to strategically manage circular economy of German development cooperation, and also to better take the needs of the partner countries into account, cooperation between these different German stakeholder groups is very important. Therefore, to sum up, common strategic goals and also implementation strategies are necessary.
Right, right. Those institutional coordination challenges are quite universal, aren't they? Now, after all this rigorous research, examining everything from policy frameworks to on the ground implementation, everyone would be interested to know about the key recommendations. So, if you can share the main recommendations and how can it help in circular economy implementation across countries?
Thank you, Neha. We are glad to do that. But first, I will also like explain a bit some of the results we didn't talk about until
Mhm.
now. So, in general, what we want to achieve with our evaluation is that we want to increase the effectiveness of circular economy interventions in development, in German development cooperation, so that partner countries can benefit more from the interventions implemented. And we find in general that the steering in the field of German development cooperation needs some improvements for it being more relevant and coherent. We talked about the ministry coordination, that is one part, but we find also that the strategies of the different ministries are different and also not quite clear and well coordinated. They don't have a common goal apart from like, okay, supporting circular economy. That's very unspecific in that sense. So what we see is that they have also their own goal of prioritizing these interventions in the beginning of the product cycle, but still we see this focus on the waste management in their portfolio. So they are somehow not acting along their own goals. No? And it's also not clear what role circular economy exactly has. Is it that every activity in the field of economics should align with a circularity approach, or should only in certain countries or in certain areas circularity be the chosen means? So they are just open questions if you read about that, or if we analyze that. And I think, Laura, we found also more interesting on when doing the portfolio analysis, right?
Yeah, that's right. Actually, we had a look at the portfolio that was provided by the different German development cooperation actors. But besides that, we also identified or found out that there were other relevant fields or sectors where German development cooperation, so at least now, is not having many interventions that are also related to circular economy. So not completely knowing the portfolio makes it, of course, harder to steer the field and also to reach the goals.
Yeah, and that's why we developed 3 recommendations in this evaluation. So one is like on a strategic guiding concept, to elaborate more on this, to have more specification on the concept of circular economy, but also to have some strategic objects across the ministries, not per ministry, and also to define some priority areas. And for the area of the portfolio, we recommend that it should be steered a bit stronger, the portfolio, to also align with the own goals, especially with respect to the activities in the beginning of the life cycle. And our third recommendation tackles then this coordination between the ministries, where we just see a lot of room for improvement.
Right. That's a great explanation, and the other things which you discussed are actually very important. And these recommendations sound like very actionable and strategic recommendations, I think. Now, after studying the implementation challenges, and everyone would also be eager to hear about the success stories. So, like, are there any countries or regions that are leading the way in circular economy implementation that others could learn from?
Yeah, thank you. That's a very good question, but also a very hard question. I'm not sure if we really can answer that with our evaluation. And
Right.
as we mentioned also before, or you said it, I think that it is just so context specific. No? So what industries in the country, which sectors are large in a country, and where is it in general on the development process, like with regard to circularity. So what we found an interesting gadget in that sense was that we found like a practical toolbox for countries, how they can integrate like circularity. It's meant for these national determined contributions to describe like how countries are contributing to the Paris Agreement for climate change. But there you can just start with kind of a stock taking, like finding first out, okay, where at which point is my country in that sense, and then develop from that like possible priority sectors, because you found just hotspots of material use or something like that in the stock taking, and then you can find there some questions which help you guide you through the process, how you can improve in terms of circular economy. So yeah, this tool is by UNEP, UNDP, and UNFCCC. So I think that might be something very helpful on the country level, no? For each and every person. I think I would think about always these R strategies, and thinking like, then where should be the preference, which is the most important R strategy to start with.
Right, right. I totally agree with you, I think. Uh, because there are some themes which are very country specific and needs to be worked upon more than the other country. So we cannot kind of take one name in circularity, I think, right? Um, Yeah, so before we conclude, I'm eager to give our audience a glimpse into what lies ahead. So, what upcoming initiatives or developments in the circular economy space do you think will be most significant to watch for?
Yeah, I think we all know that we are currently in difficult times also with regard to some of these topics, as some players are going rather some step backs than maybe forward with regard to actions, also to climate action. And I think we saw, especially in the last years, a lot of international developments. Uh, which were positive with regard to circular economy. It was integrated and also in the Paris Agreement as a mitigation measure. We have, for example, in Europe here, a EU Circular Economy Action Plan. Germany just developed or just published last year this national strategy on circular economy. But still, we see some political changes now in Germany, worldwide, etc., where it's not clear how this whole approach is further pursued. I think we can, in general, say that circular activities are and will be part in the economic activities, because we know there are scarcities in primary resources, etc. And we see also in general that the term is not yeah, deleted in that sense from strategies or so, but it still stays there, but it goes a bit into the background. And but still, the developments. There's also this interesting circular gap report. I'm not sure if you heard about that. It's like a stock taking report on circular economy worldwide, and they see also that the use, for example, of secondary materials, which would be one of the main goals of circular activity, is actually decreasing in comparison to virgin materials, and that's in primary resources. And yeah, so yeah, I'm curious how the developments are going to be in the future. What is still there is a treaty on plastic pollution, which is going to be negotiated this summer. And I'm very curious if they find now an agreement. I think they were struggling last year a bit between like very ambitious countries and less ambitious countries, and couldn't find an agreement. But that's maybe a political development to watch out for.
Right. Thank you, Cornelia, for giving us such a wonderful insight on the circularity and what lies ahead. I think this conversation has been incredibly enlightening and valuable. Thank you both for sharing your deep expertise and for walking us through the complexities of circular economy implementation, from the theoretical foundations to the real world challenges. So you have given our listeners a much richer understanding of what's at stake and what's possible. So any concluding thoughts or comments from your side?
Thank you very much for giving us this possibility. We think it's a very important topic. It's interesting to follow up on this, and we are also interested in what's going to happen with our evaluation in the future, and what the ministry do, well, the ministries do with our recommendations. And yeah, I'm curious also to see what in all the different countries like India, Albania is going to happen in with circular economy activities in the future. Thank you for having us here.
Right, right. Thank you so much. And to everyone listening to this podcast, I encourage you to, dive deeper into this important work. Please share this comprehensive report with your friends, family, and colleagues. Anyone who is passionate about sustainability and sustainable development and wants a deeper understanding of circular economy implementation. You will find the link to access the full report in the comment section. And with this, we are signing off with a thought. Circular economy is the circle of possibility. So, what's your take on this? I'll see you again in another interesting podcast. Till then, have a very healthy life and work towards circular economy. Thank you.